What's up everyone, I'm Ryan, or you may know me by my drag name, which is Amber Valentine. I'm a Chicago-based drag queen and artist, and I've always wanted to start my own YouTube channel just with tutorials and it's discussing everything that I love about drag and art in general. Ever since I started doing drag, people are seriously like constantly asking me like, when are you gonna do a makeup tutorial? Like, do a makeup tutorial. And it's like, I mean, I don't like say it in those words specifically, but it's like, you know, when people are like, oh my god, you're beautiful, like your makeup's amazing. I mean, I guess maybe not all of them meant it that way. Maybe some were just giving compliments, or I guess kind of feeling like now, like maybe no one has ever asked for, or maybe no one's actually ever asked for a tutorial, but guess what? I'm doing it anyway. So stay tuned if you want to see me go from this to this. Alright, before we start, I have to address the elephant in the room. No eyebrows anymore. Some queens do cover their eyebrows with glue stick. I used to do that and it just was the bane of my existence. It takes so long and it's never perfectly smooth. And now that I'm doing drag, like 2 to 3 times a week, it just makes more sense for me to shave them. I know I look crazy right now, but I have such blonde eyebrows as it is that I have to fill them in with pencil every day anyway, so this doesn't really change much for my routine personally as a boy. I already prepped and primed my face, so I'm ready to go right in on my forehead. I like to start with the top of the face and work my way down. I start with this very dark looking stick. It is just something I got on Amazon. The brand name to me does not matter as long as it does the trick. So just to contour my forehead and curve it out a little bit, I'm gonna add this to the outer edges. Next, I'm gonna go in with this more medium shade right up against that dark shade. I'm gonna take a very, very light shade on here, and in the very center of my forehead, I'm gonna start dabbing that on, and I will bring that down between my eyes as well, and slightly onto my eyelid. And then I'll continue blending that up into that medium shade, and then continue up into the darkest shade. Once that's all blended out, I will just set that with a ton of setting powder. Next, I'm gonna go in with a contour palette like this. You can see the shades that I use most are these along the bottom. And I'm gonna start with like this sort of slightly dark shade here. And I'm just gonna add this along the hairline, slowly. So what you might notice is that once you add that translucent powder over top of your cream contour, a lot of that color goes away. So I'm not trying to make this any darker than it was. I just kind of want to use the powders to redefine that contour that I'd already done with the cream. And make sure that it's still coming across after it's been set with powder. Alright, so as I mentioned before, I kind of like to go from the top of my face down, so the next thing is eyebrows. So I'm just going to take this little brown pencil. Obviously, I love this pencil, and that's why it's so tiny now. So I'm going to start just sketching out my brows. So everything I do with my makeup is really purposeful. The first thing you might notice is that my eyes are very close together. So what I'm doing is my true arch of my brow bone is about here, and I am actually cheating it and bringing it up and way out here to make my forehead look wider, because I want this area of my face to be the widest, and then down here I want to make this look small and feminine. So when I'm doing my second eyebrow, the thing I'm always doing is my eyes constantly darting back and forth between the two brows to try to match the shape. And you've probably heard the saying that eyebrows are sisters, not twins, and I agree with that, but at the same time, it's like, doesn't mean you don't care what they look like. It's like, try to make them perfect, and if they're not, it's okay. Now that I have my eyebrows filled in mostly with the pencil, I'm gonna go in with a very small angled brush like this and just kind of clean up all those lines and spread out the pencil so that it's more even. Next up, I'm gonna use this beautiful palette. I'm like a real YouTuber. No, this is literally from Amazon. Like I said earlier, I really don't care about brand names or anything. Unless you wanna send me something, because then I'll use brand names. But I'm gonna take this little like brown shade here, which is like almost gone. And I'm just going to powder over the brows to set them in place. Now that the brows are set, I'm going to take this white cream concealer, and I do not recommend this brand. I won't say the brand, but it's really greasy and not great, but this is pretty much all I use it for. That's not true, I use it for a lot of things. But I don't ever use it as a foundation or anything, so the purposes I use it for, it ends up working, but I still think another brand would be better. And I'm just gonna take this and clean up underneath the brow. And you know, I never used to do this step because I used to just try to draw my eyebrows as perfect as possible so I wouldn't have to clean up the edges. And also I didn't like this stark white under the eyebrow look that so many queens at least used to do, just because I felt like it didn't look as natural. And I think when I first started doing drag, I was like very concerned with looking like a woman. And now I like to look striking, and I think the contrast between the very, very light brow bone and the darker eyebrow really catches your eye. And that's what I do with a lot of my drag, is not necessarily trying to look like a woman, because I don't care about that anymore. I just want to be like a beautiful creature, sort of. But so a lot of these little tricks, I feel like, help make it more graphic and eye-catching. All right, so as you can see, I really kind of draw that out just like my eyebrows to kind of pull those eyes out. And I bring the white in and sort of fade it in the inner corner, and then fade it out towards the outside as well. And then I only bring it down about this far because I'm gonna be drawing my cut crease right in here. And above that, I want that white underneath so that when I put the color on top of it, it's really gonna make the color really saturated and bright. Whereas if I put it just right on top of my skin, it would look a little bit more muted. I'm gonna do kind of one of my go-to makeup looks, which is sort of a purple eye. I'm gonna come in with this purple shade right here. I think a lot of my inspiration comes from, like, I hate to say it, but Barbie is how original, right? Just growing up, I had two older sisters, and they were never even really that into Barbie. They had Barbies, but I mean, I think I was the one who really wanted them the most. And oh, I just realized I totally missed a step. Before doing this, I want to set the top part with white right in here. Okay, and now back to the next step. So anyway, yeah, I think just growing up as a gay little kid and not really understanding, you know, what was going on with me, I think I was really drawn to a lot of things that girls were supposed to like and not boys. And my parents were always very accepting and open and allowed me to experiment and everything, but at the same time it was like, you know, you have those social pressures that this isn't the norm and boys aren't supposed to like these kinds of things. But so I think that's where a lot of my drag is, it kind of derives from that. And also I think that's why I kind of have an obsession with the blonde Barbie kind of look and the color pink. So that's the look I'm going to give you today. As you can see, I'm really kind of packing that color on so I get a lot of pigment. Ugh, I hate when YouTubers say, look at the pigment. But that's what I'm going for, so lots of pigment. And then once I have this sort of shape created that's just sort of going, sort of following the eye saga up and then out for the wing, then once I kind of have gotten, you know, hardly any powder left on my brush, then I'm going to start blending it out and up and just smoking that out. Look at the pigment. Oh, the pigment. Oh my god, look at that pigment. I'm so stupid. Oh, I look crazy. That's one thing they don't tell you about drag when you first get started, is that as you're getting through it, you start by looking like a boy, and then you get really, really ugly before you get pretty. But I remember putting one of my friends into drag for the first time, and he almost had like a meltdown halfway through because he felt like he looked so ugly. And I was like, this is just part of the process, girl. Just keep sticking with it. Oh, sorry. So now I'm doing this purple that's like literally gone. I just got this, I saw this palette at like Walgreens or something, and I just saw this purple and I had to have it. And you can tell that's pretty much the only color I've used. But I'm using this as sort of a mid-tone shade to sort of deepen that crease a little bit, and on this sort of flat, thin brush so that I can drag that down and get better detail in this inner corner. The other thing I suggest for, especially for drag makeup where you're cheating your natural features, you're not a real woman who's using her actual crease and that kind of thing, or even for anyone who's not necessarily just drag makeup, but anyone who is cheating their features and trying to create a different shape eye or anything like that, I'd say stick with matte makeup, because you don't get that shine that really will give away the fact that this shape isn't real. Like, I'm trying to create an indent here and I don't actually have one there. So this keeps it from being so obvious. Okay, I just looked at Barbie, and Barbie doesn't even have purple eyeshadow, so I don't even know where this is coming from now that I say it. But I guess it's just sort of my interpretation of Barbie, because I don't know, maybe back in my day Barbie had purple eyeshadow. I don't know the last time I actually even saw a Barbie. Anyway, we're going with my interpretation or my memory of it, and we're not trying to look like Barbie, it's just that my makeup has a little bit of inspiration there. But if you want to see like a Barbie tutorial, maybe I could do that, so let me know. Alright, now the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tiny little brush here, and I'm going to use like this dark purple shade right here. And I'm just going to put this right along the line of where I'm going to have my crease so that it'll add some fake depth there. Another thing to note is you can see that I have very hooded eyes, so you can't even see my eyelids when I'm looking straight forward. So that's part of why I'm actually drawing my eyelid on so high above my actual eyelid, because if I did use my real lid, you wouldn't be able to see it at all. All right, now that that's done, I'm gonna go back in with this tiny little brush and this white cream makeup stick once again and cut out my crease. I've seen a lot of queens who kind of bring their eyelid all the way into the center of their nose here like that. And I guess maybe that works for some eye shapes. For me, again, because my eyes are so close together, I want to create as much distance between the inner corner of my eye and my nose as possible. So I like to just create a very thin little crease there. And if you look at my real crease on the inner corner there, it is thin. It's not going all the way into my nose. So I feel like it does help it make it look a little bit more natural as this wild drag makeup can get. Another thing you might notice is that this goes up here toward the inner corner of the brow, and then sort of starts to droop down on the outside here. I've seen a lot of queens that like to, you know, really just snatch that lid up high, and I used to do that too, and something about it always bothered me, and I could never put my finger on what it was until finally I realized that it's like I need to follow the shape of my actual eyelid for the lid, even though it's way above. And then the liner itself can come across and come up, and that way it'll still bring that eye up, but without having this sort of unnatural shaped eyelid. But again, I mean, that's personal preference, and not everything that works for me will work for you or anyone else. All right, then now that I've got both lids drawn on, I'm just gonna set this with that same white that we used to set under the brow. All right, next up, eyeliner. I love this little eyeliner. It's like a marker, and I'm obsessed with it. This is my second one, and it's kind of starting to dry out a little bit now, but I have another one coming in the mail, so hopefully it'll be here soon. So as I said before, with my hooded eyes, it makes it a little bit difficult to do eyeliner. If I just did a thin line of eyeliner, when I open my eyes, you wouldn't be able to see it at all. So what I actually do, I found this out basically by accident, but what I do is I'll put a thin line along my lash line, like so, and then when I open my eye, you can see how that transferred. So then I know that's pretty much where I'll end up putting my liner. So I'm just kind of connecting the inner corner here up to that line, and then out here I'm gonna actually start on this outer corner here where I sort of have this makeup already going in this wing. I'm just gonna pull that from the outer all the way straight across in. All right, now you can kind of see how I connected those two lines in that inner corner and the outer and connected them together into one line. All this below here will be filled in with black as well, which seems like such a massive amount of black, but then it's like when I look forward and open my eye, you can barely see this on top, and then once I have the lashes on, it'll barely be noticeable. So even though it is such a huge chunk of black, it ends up looking not that crazy thick. You can also see how the outer corner of my new eyelid connects into that black space, so it just kind of feels like that curve like dips right into the black liner. The next thing is, if you really look at my lid here, how it sort of droops down on the outer corner, I want to hide that or work around it. I want to follow underneath this curve of my eye up instead of bringing it down to where this outer corner is. It'll make it look droopy. So look straight on, and I'll just sort of touch the eyeliner down, and I'll just continue that like so. As you can see how that black line sort of continues along with my waterline a little bit. And then I will just draw from the outer corner here, from the outer tip of that wing, and connect that together. And then once I had that all filled in, you can see how that kind of cheats that outer lid, which looks a little bit weird right now, but then what I do with my under eye will hide that even more. All right, so now I'm just gonna close my eye, and I'm gonna go kind of straight down from that line and just kind of keep looking back and forth to see how the skin folds. All right, so now that I have that all filled in, I'm gonna go right back in with black powder right away. I'm just setting all of that black. I want this to be jet black, just black as night. Eyes for me are what I spend the most time on. I feel like it's what people look at first when they look at you. And I also feel like it's just something striking when you have a really powerful eye. It just kind of does something for the whole face. Now the last thing I'm gonna do is my crease, I feel like is looking pretty good, but I want to deepen it just a little bit further even, just to really carve it out and make it look like it's actually has some depth there. So just on the outer corner, I'm gonna take that same little skinny angled brush I used for my eyebrows earlier. And I'm just gonna take a little bit of black, and just on this outer corner, I'm just gonna follow that crease line. And blend it into the eyeliner. And can you see how that sort of just makes it push in a little bit further compared to this side? It just looks like there's a little bit more depth to it. So now that I'm finished with the top half of my eyes, I can go in with makeup wipes and just clean up any of this fallout that I might have from the eyeshadows. I know a lot of queens like to do their whole face first, and then they'll just bake on top with powder and they can dust that off. For me, my skin just tends to get a little bit too dry for that, and if I put so much powder on it, it'll look really cakey and weird, so I just found that this works better for me. All right, next step, color correction. This is something you really only need to do if you grow a beard, and I do. I actually have really dark facial hair, considering the fact that I am blondish. So I just take this orange lipstick, and if you thought I looked crazy before, this is broken. Just wait. And I just put this on the areas where my beard is the darkest. Beard hair, for some reason, tends to look kind of bluish or greenish when it shows up as stubble. And if you know anything about color theory, orange is opposite from blue on the color wheel, and red is opposite from green. So if you have kind of a reddish orange color like this, it's gonna kind of cancel out any of those undertones. So then I'm just gonna take a little bit of powder and sort of powder over that just lightly, just because I want to sort of set that in place so that it doesn't bleed into my foundation. But at the same time, I don't want to put so much powder that it ends up looking clumpy or something once I add the foundation on top. So with that, I'm ready to start my base. I'm gonna take this brush, which is actually a paintbrush that I have from art school. And I'm just gonna start with my lightest color foundation first. And I'm just gonna start placing that in all the areas that I want to be the lightest. I put the highlight just here only, basically, and obviously in the middle of my forehead, and then a little bit on my chin. But to me, that brings this forward, makes this look the widest, as I mentioned before, and then I want the jawline to come in into a little point, so it looks like this tiny little sweet feminine jaw. And then any issues that I had with my wing, I can also just come in with this brush and I'll just fix that and clean that right up. Put a little bit on my chin. And we're done. Stunning. Stunning, oh my God. Then I'm gonna come in with my second foundation shade, which is just a tiny bit darker. Literally just put this directly on my skin. And I'm gonna start on my highlight areas and then work my way to the darker areas. And then we're ready to set. Also focus a lot of powder around anywhere that you might tend to sweat, like your upper lip, your chin, because newsflash, drag is very high energy and you tend to sweat. All right, you may have noticed that I didn't really do much of anything with contouring with creams. I really prefer powders. I feel like I have a lot more control with it. It feels a lot easier to blend. Also, I think that it makes lines less harsh. So I'm gonna start with the same palette that I had before. So I start with like even almost this shade here mixed with maybe this one. I'll kind of just start in on my jawline and just sort of take it in where I want that to go. The other thing I think this helps with is when you're contouring your jaw, it can end up looking like this very harsh line here that looks weird when you open your jaw or open your mouth and talk. And this sort of creates this sort of soft gradient that goes from like the darkest darks all the way up to the lightest lights. And because that dark is even coming up like onto my jawline, but not super noticeably, I just think that helps it to blend out a little bit better too. So now that that is pretty much done, I'm gonna go in with this medium brown and the really dark brown here and continue pushing in those contours. And now that I've done that, I'm gonna go in with this much smaller brush to get more precision of where I want the contour to go. And I'm gonna start with the jawline again. And I'm gonna take that medium brown shade and start right under my chin and start bringing that out. I like to blend this up around this sort of chin highlight. I feel like it makes the chin look, it's coming to much more of a point like I mentioned before. Something that I think I don't see often at all is queens who bring their cheek contour down a little bit further. A lot of queens like to bring it high up, but for me, I have high cheekbones as a man, and I think that makes your face look longer and more angular, whereas I want to bring mine down to here to look like I have this big round cheek. I want to soften my face, take away some of those angles and add more curves. Lastly, I'm going to come in with just a little bit darker at the very, very bottom here and really try to create that curve shape, like as if my face is really kind of coming out and curving in there, which if I did have an indent here, which is what we're trying to create the illusion of, it would be the very darkest shadow right in the very bottom there where it's really curving in that bone structure that we don't have that we're creating. For blush, I take this really old makeup palette it's probably like the first eyeshadow palette I ever bought, and it's like just absolute crap. But the one thing I do like about it is these two blushes here, how it has that light blush on the top and the dark one on the bottom. So I'll just take this big fluffy brush again and I'll rub together, and you can see on the brush now how I have like the light and the dark, and that way I can just use that because the blush will help solidify that contour, but then the light blush on top will keep that from getting too dark on top, and it'll still add a nice like pink hue. So the next thing I'm going to contour is my nose. I take this little palette here. I just feel like this shade of brown is just the perfect contour shade for my nose. And also I feel like this goes without saying, but maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But I'm not going along the actual side of my nose here. I'm bringing it way further in, and then I'll blend it out to meet pretty much where the actual side of my nose is. And that way it'll make my nose look a lot more pinched and thinner. If I did it way out here, I actually think it would probably make my nose look wider than it actually is. And that's not what I'm going for. And I'm just gonna take white with this little sort of pointed brush. I'm just gonna go right down the bridge of the nose to highlight. So now I'm going in with that foundation stick and that tiny little brush again underneath my eye to kind of open it up a little bit with some white. And I'm just gonna kind of drag it down to a point here below the inner corner. Then I'm going to draw all the way across the bottom waterline as well. You can see I'm kind of bringing this line pretty far out here, and that's to kind of visually make my eyes look like they're pulled out because, again, close together eyes. And I'm bringing the white pretty far down too because the way that purple pops up here on top of the white, I just wouldn't get that same effect when I put the purple on the bottom unless I add the white underneath it. Now I'm going back in with that purple, the same purple that I used on the top, and I'm going to just sort of create a line underneath the white. Bring it just right along that white line. And once I have that shaped the way I want it, I'm just going to start blending it downward and smoke it out. Now that I have both of those eyes done, I'm going to go back in with my trusty eyeliner and just do a nice line right where that purple meets the white. All right, now just to smoke that out a tiny bit, I'm gonna go in with that dark purple shade that I used right in the crease up here, and I'm just gonna smoke out the bottom liner. That's a little further down than I would normally go, but it's drag. Also, one thing I forgot to do is to connect these inner corners down so that it looks like my eye is coming down with that white. Otherwise, it looks a little funny. And I don't connect it all the way down, but just a little bit. I like to leave a little bit of white open space, but just to kind of connect it a little bit. Then next up, we just have mascara, lashes, lips, and we're done. So we are almost there. So let's just start by coating these lashes with a thick layer of black mascara because my lashes are very blonde and I want them to blend in really well with my false lashes. All right, and like most drag queens, one pair of lashes is just not enough for me. So I take a strip of 301s, which is like one of the largest, oh my God, I'm doing the YouTube hand, one of the largest size lashes you can get, and then I stack them with maybe another pair of 301s and some smaller ones just to make sure it's the right thickness and length. Add a little bit of eyelash glue and give it plenty of time to dry because this stuff takes a long time to get tacky, and if you don't wait till it's tacky, it's just gonna smear all over your eye and your lash is gonna be falling off. It's just not a good thing. All right, lashes are on, and I know that I said that all we had left to do was lips, but I almost forgot one very important part, highlighter. I'm gonna take that middle gold one again, and I'm only putting it right here on the very top of my cheek, just for me personally. I feel like people who use too much highlighter end up looking sweaty, and maybe that's just a trigger for me because I sweat a lot when I perform, but I don't wanna look like the way I look when I'm done performing, all greasy and everything. So when people do the upper lip and everything, I'm like, are you trying to look of a sweaty lip? I don't know. Moving on to lips, I feel like I've done every color lip under the sun, like a red, a merlot color, purple, green, blue, you name it. But I just think a pink lip is just so, I don't know, maybe it ties back into Barbie again, I'm not sure. But it's just my favorite thing, it just feels like me. All right, so I usually start in the Cupid's bow. And I like to follow the shape of my lip, but just much higher. And then from here, I used to always just go straight down from here to the corner of my lip, but then I noticed that it makes me look really sad because this is so high and it goes so low. And so what I started doing is cheating my outer corner just slightly. I feel like when people do it too much, it looks a little crazy, but I'll kind of follow the line from my bottom lip and bring it up just slightly outside of my mouth. And then to keep from frowning or looking crazy when you smile and you get that big, which I still get sometimes, but I like to kind of smile and then just connect those lines. And that's how I get the shape of the lip. And then I like to just clean up the outer edge of the lip with a brush. It just works really well to make sure those lines are really crisp and clean on the outer edge. And then I can go in and fill the rest in with liquid lipstick. All right, and I know you're probably thinking, all right, done, the lip looks fine, it's on. But no, I actually have 2 more little steps. I'll go back in with my lip liner, and I wanna continue to contour that upper lip a little bit so you can't see that hard ridge line. Then I'll go back in with my lip brush and sort of blend that out. And what you end up with is sort of this ombre lip look, but what it's really doing is like the top of my lip here, the ridge, the light's gonna hit that the most because it's facing more upward, whereas my lip is going down, so it's not gonna get as much light on it. So you wanna actually add darker up here and then have the lighter underneath so that when it balances out, it looks more like a flat shape as opposed to a hard ridge line. And then the final step for the lips and the makeup in general really is to take a little bit of that white cream and I'll just pop that right in the center of the lips just to make that pink a little bit brighter and also to add a little bit of dimension to the lip. All right, and with that, the lips are done and the whole face is done. So I'm just gonna go set my face with some setting spray and put on my hair and outfit, and I'll be right back with the final look. All right, everyone, this is the final look. I hope you enjoyed the video and the transformation. I plan to make a lot more videos going forward, so hit the subscribe button to stay up to date. And you can also follow me on Instagram at @TheAmberValentine. Hope to see you all soon. Thanks for watching.